Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cinema Savvy. This is myself, George, joined once more by Tayte for another special spoiler discussion and kind of doubling into a new review. This is, of course, Glass Onion, the sequel to A Knives Out, which I would love to say is in cinemas now, but is tonight finishing its 1 week cinematic run ahead of its wide Netflix release on the 23rd of December 2022. But before we start getting into it, Tate, how are we doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing good. We have reviewed this spoiler-free previously, so I do want to kind of make that known first. We did that a while back when the film festival was on, and I haven't been able to see it this week since. But it's one of those films where because it's going to stay with you for a while. Like you're not going to miss things. I can't wait to watch it again when it comes out to Netflix. But I guess we'll talk about kind of the release and kind of my first experience with the film and everything like that in a short while.
Absolutely. And to everybody watching at home, this is a spoiler discussion, and this is a film that is going to have a lot of spoilers, things you don't want ruined for you. If you do not want any of this film ruined, do not continue watching this until you've seen it. Whether that means waiting another month, whether you've been able to see it over the last week, we'll be really curious to hear about your thoughts on that. So please do stick with us in that respect. And if you are watching it, let us know your thoughts on the film. We'll reply to all those comments and do consider hitting that like, share, and subscribe button. We are, of course, planning ahead for 2023. Our big shows for the year are now done. We've had a lovely little break on the channel. It's going to be a weird December. There's some films coming out, some big films, some smaller films, a lot of Netflix films, and we'll have videos up as and when. And the best way to find out about those videos as and when is getting us on social medias. Twitter and Instagram at cinema_savvy, Facebook and letterboxd.com/cinemasavvy. A link to Redbubble in that description, baby. Can pick up some bad merch to help support the channel. But heading over to you quickly, Tate. I know you covered this with Neil before, and we were chatting before. I didn't watch the spoiler-free review. I went into this film as cold as possible. Then I was curious why I didn't watch the film at the film festival. I went to the red carpet instead to try and get some autographs and meet some of the people, which was pretty great. And that probably gave me a lot more hype than a trailer did. That satisfied me. I guess I could say avoiding the trailers as much as possible. I actually don't think I've actually seen a single trailer for this film now I've said that out loud. I think I avoided this at all costs, which I'm quite happy about now I've seen it.
Yeah, I mean, the trailers, I watched the trailers once again before doing this review. I usually do that with a lot of the films that we go on and review. And I want to say that it's a good enough trailer that it draws intrigue without actually spoiling anything. The second trailer does have some elements which are, they do draw into kind of areas of the film which, once you've seen it, you're like, you match the scenes together. And especially with whodunit films, you kind of put the pieces together and you're like, okay, would it have been solvable from the trailer? No, absolutely not. But at least you're starting to see some of the threads coming loose with it. But you wouldn't be able to see that upon first glance. Like they really do a really good job of keeping it spoiler free, which is very interesting because keeping it spoiler free was, the topic of our first video. When we watched this in the film festival, they had someone from either the festival, I think it was someone from the festival, come on the stage and explicitly say, Netflix want this to be kept quiet. You can go and do your reviews about it, go and give your opinions, but don't spoil a thing. There are only certain things you can talk about. You can't really go in depth into the characters. You can talk about what the characters are at face value, but you're not allowed to reveal like any of the crimes, murders, any of the mysteries, any of the twists, any of the turns that happen during and throughout the film. So I feel like for our first review, we were quite cut off at the legs there. Which is great for people who are going to be going into this film and experiencing it and, having that kind of first glance without having anything spoiled for it. And we'll talk about the release in a short second because it's a very unusual release pattern, especially if it's going to be going online, in about a month's time to have a cinematic release already so that the spoilers are going to be out there. The spoilers are there. I mean, to look at some of the details of the film, the Wikipedia page has the entire plot there already. And we will be talking about spoilers tonight as well. So it is going to be available and out there. And with modern day cinemas, once the spoilers get out there, it's very difficult to keep them penned in. But at least for that brief moment in time between the film festival and when the film came out, nothing was kind of leaked. Nothing came out that was anything affecting the plot outside of, the character details, which we'll also kind of get into in a short while.
Yeah, and kind of talk about that cinema experience. So I got to see it last night at the cinema. I was meant to go last Wednesday for the opening day, but yeah, as I mentioned in a couple of videos, I'm in the process of moving things around, and all of my plans were cut off last week to wait for my Ikea delivery, so I didn't get to watch Knives Out. And there's the World Cup on, which is state the really blatant obvious. So there's a lot of football. And I was kind of good because I didn't know if I'd get the chance to go and message you. Like, I don't know when I'm going to see it now. Again, it's a 1 week cinema showing. And for anyone curious about how these have worked, normally a Netflix film, like White Noise, for example, apparently comes out on Friday at cinemas, being shown in less than 25 cinemas in the United Kingdom. Brilliant. That's going to be easy for people to get to. And with this one, I would argue that this is Netflix. I mean, it's not even their franchise, is it? This is Netflix's, to me, their first franchise, yet they didn't have anything to do with the first one. They have bought into this franchise at the earliest opportunity. They've, of course, funded the second and what will be the third film. They have the rights for these two films. If anyone's curious, obviously, Rian Johnson, Bram Bergman, and Daniel Craig all got massive whopping fees, which you can read about online. But this was meant to be the film that was going to change everything for Netflix. They're billions in debt. They make loss after loss after loss. They've introduced an advertisement version of the streaming service for you to get adverts to make it cheaper because they want your money that much. And this was the one, I don't even remember it, maybe the start of this year, there was a lot of reports coming around that this is going to be the first Netflix film to have a full cinema release. This will be the one which they experiment with. This is going to be the one that they do for the big films moving forward. And all the rumors pointed to it having a normal cinema release, 2-3 months advantage in the cinema, coming out at home on Netflix months after. And I was quite excited. This was on the award circuit, as Netflix put a lot of money into those award circuits too. And then there were some rumors online about this might be 1 week before it drops on Netflix in December, which a lot of people kicked off about. And then full confirmation came that this would be shown in cinemas for 1 week, 1 month before the film comes out on Netflix, nothing more. And that, again, I'm not here to gossip, but there were obviously rumors and articles about certain reactions from the director of the film, agreements, etc., etc. Very messy, outside of our pay scale. But I was really disappointed because the first film of this grossed 300 million plus. It's not come out and no one spoke about it ever since. This is revered, this first film. There's a lot of anticipation for the second one, especially post Bond last year. Everyone now knows, Daniel Craig is free of the shackles of James Bond. And now what's he going to do? And, it was a sequel to Knives Out, which is an easy sell, an incredible cast who we'll get to talk about. And I started reading about these screenings last week everywhere, where they were starting to sell out in America. They were selling out in the United Kingdom. They were showing all these independent cinemas were showing it a lot of times. Also, worth noting, this was the first wide release Netflix film, which means that all the chains showed a Netflix film for the very first time. Cineworld, Odeon here, View. However, they limited it to major cities, not all their cinemas, which was frustrating. But it was more accessible. And just talking about that before we even get into the box office, I was mentioning last night, I went at 10:10 at night. One of my good friends. And when we got in at like 10, we were the only two. I was like, okay, who's going to go to the cinema on a Monday night at 10 o'clock?
Yeah.
There ended up being about 50 people, which really caught me off guard, in a very, very good way. Like, obviously, it wasn't rammed. It's a very big cinema, but I didn't expect 50 people on a Monday night at 10 o'clock, which was very interesting. And also, it made for a better experience watching this film.
Yeah, I mean, I remember kind of watching the first film, especially watching this film as well. It's good to watch it in a crowd. And I'm not one of those people. I absolutely detest it. I absolutely detest reactions from the audience during cinema. We've been getting a lot of it over the years. Oscars even made their own segment on it last year, which was just vomit-inducing. And the fact they gave it to a film that didn't even get released in cinemas made it even funnier. Yeah. But yeah, I don't like crowd reactions, but this is the kind of film where watching it in a crowd, you will get a chuckle, and it's infectious across the room, and all the moments of drama, they come with the shocking moments and stuff like that. Like, I can understand the reactions to a film like this. This is I'd call this a social cinema film. Whether you're watching it at home with like your family or your friends on Netflix, or whether you're watching this in the cinema, this is best experienced with other people. Because with the mystery as well, and I should never say this, don't try and, talk during the cinemas and stuff like that. But especially at home, watching it through Netflix, you can try and figure out the case and people can put their theories forward and stuff like that. Like, it's that kind of film. And it's really intriguing that once again, they were going to do a full cinema release. They didn't do that in the end. They've done a limited release. But the fact that, it's going to be out on Netflix in a month's time, it made them a lot of money. It's a really fascinating one. It's like Netflix finally have something to grab hold of that they can go, yes, everyone, look at this, and they've only gone, look at this, no, we're taking it away. We'll give it back to you again in a minute. And it's really fascinating in that sense.
I think it's counterproductive. And I'm not here just to say, cinemas are great. I prefer the cinema experience. It isn't just that now. I think, for me, at least, you get a very small scale, friends and family. Why isn't this showing at this cinema? Says the brand of the cinema like 5 minutes away. Or parents are like, oh, we really want to watch that. When do you want to go? I was like, it goes tomorrow, and there's an England game on, so you won't get a chance now. And the report is that there's, from the American box office, it's understood this grossed $15 million. Now, normally for box office, the studios declare the sum, and then it obviously goes out in not forms of press releases, but to the companies that do box offices, etc., etc. And this one in particular, Netflix are refusing to release the numbers. It was shown on 600 screens in the United States. For comparison, is it Brave New World, Strange New World?
Strange World,
New Disney one, Strange World, Black Panther, they're all on 4,500 screens, not 600.
What I find fascinating as well, because Netflix have had a good run of films recently, and they've got a good run of films that are coming out towards Christmas. They've got the ability to be able to put things out there, especially films that really do fit that kind of environment. Like All Quiet on the Western Front this year, it is my favorite film of the year by a long shot. I think it's one of the best war films that has possibly ever been made. But it was straight onto Netflix. There was only 6 cinemas in the UK it actually got released to, or something like that. And yeah, they all sold out. It's a cinematic experience film. It's kind of broad in its scope. It's loud and visceral, and its cinematography is absolutely just mind-bogglingly stunning, absolutely stunning. And yet, because it's Netflix, it's just purely for that home release. And with this film, sure, the visuals aren't as good or anything like that, but at the same time, you have that opportunity to really kind of put it out there, and you're probably going to make an awful lot of money having it as a cinema release as well as having it on Netflix.
I think they've missed out. I mean, the original grossed 300 mil. I think this is just safe to say that Netflix have lost. I don't want to say lost money on a film, but they have literally thrown away $400 million of income. And this is to a studio that is struggling so much they've introduced an advertisement tier of streaming. And I don't think this being in cinema for a few months would affect its streaming service. I think people would have gone to this, and this was the film for Netflix to start experimenting with. And it's just fascinating that they've gone this way. As I said, I'm grateful that Rian Johnson's going to get 2 more films, well, including this one, of course, and the cast. But you look at the sum Netflix have paid for those rights and for these sequels, and you just think, what is the return on subscribers? You're not going to have that return on subscribers. And, and the conversation I've already seen today is online. When's it going to come out in 4K? When's it going to come out in Blu-ray? How are we going to watch it at home?
Yeah. Because
the first one's available in all those formats. And I'm like, well, I know they're doing Criterions and stuff like that, but again, this is what happens. Now they have their first blockbuster film. They've bought into a franchise, a successful franchise.
They've got a blockbuster film, but the whole point of blockbuster is, it's around the block, queuing around the block. You can't do that at home.
This is it. and I know we're not spoke about the film, but it's a very fascinating. And we're just 1 week, by the way. Over the next month, there might be some insane news stories about. You might get statistics coming out. You might get more things being said about this. We're going to find out what they're going to campaign for the your consideration Oscars. This film's going to stick around for a few months, and it might work a blinder for it. They had a week of hype at the cinema to get people talking for a month, but to me personally, it's unsustainable, and there's a reason they're crumbling as a business.
I will say they've had a good week, which will turn into a good month because Wednesday is doing very well at the moment.
Yeah,
I know that.
But Netflix always declare their original films break all their own records. Just apparently, it's never been a non-Netflix film or show that's broke their own records, which is
there was
irony.
one. Wait, no, Friends. Friends did a lot of damage. I remember Friends did
Friends just, lot. But they paid a lot of money for those rights.
They paid a lot of money, so probably profit-wise,
like
they probably broke about just about even maybe when they got Friends on the platform. But
and
that's a one-time play.
HBO Max.
I was going to say that's a one-time gambit where you play Friends once, then you can't play it again because people aren't going to keep on coming on for watching it. People have seen it now, and it's,
Yeah, but aside from money about Netflix, should we talk about some
let's actually dive into like the spoilers of the film and stuff like that.
Yeah, so with this being a spoiler discussion for people at home, it kind of doubles up as a review. We're going to go through the major points of this film, the spoilers, the big moments, the small moments, the things that worked, the things that might not have worked. And we've kind of formulated a plan of our own. So we're going to actually kickstart. We're not doing it sort of, scene by scene, but we're going to kickstart the premise, which, everyone's invited to the Glass Onion, the island of Ed Norton, this tech billionaire, aka Elon Musk. Let's just get it out of the way.
Yeah. What was the name of the island? I know that there was a funny name for it, or it had a name.
I can't remember already. I just keep knowing it's the Glass. I thought the Glass Onion was going to be an object, but obviously it was actually the name of the building.
Yeah.
But of course, he's a tech man that runs Alpha Industries, and he wants to host a murder mystery party where they will be spending the weekend solving his own murder. And Benoit Blanc has been invited. I loved this premise. Again, I don't know what was in the trailer and what wasn't. But the way murder mystery... There's been a lot of murder mystery films this year, by the way. We've had See How They Run, which I thought was fine. Bodies, 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 which was magnificent. That was a lot of fun, and that I thought was very, very good.
I haven't seen Bodies yet. I need to watch it.
You'll like that. And I think there's been another one I've missed, and then this one as well. But the beauty of this genre of film is that it doesn't matter how many thousands they want to make. If it's got good writing, you're going to be entertained every time. No matter even if you think you can predict who it is and it is that person, they are very often, with a good script, equally as entertaining every time. And for this one, it's Rian Johnson, one of my favorite characters. The last one was it's a murder mystery, but actually the guy commits suicide and we've ended up doing another murder from the cleaner. And my question posing is, how are we going to do a second one? How are you going to keep it as a Knives Out film, as a Rian Johnson? Let's remove it being a Knives Out mystery. It's a Rian Johnson murder mystery, and I think that's the goal here. Benoit Blanc is his own pariah now, and the instant setup for me of them all being contextual COVID, fine, secluded on the islands, and immediately Ed Norton, who we know has a rep as an actor, being tricky on set, playing sort of bastard characters. You think straight away, okay, this guy's going to die for real, and we're going to spend the weekend working out who actually killed him. And it wasn't that at all, was it? How did you find just the actual premise of, if we say the spoiler was the first big spoiler, turn off now, that he's not the victim, he isn't murdered. Of course, it turns out that he is the true villain, but he is the antagonist of the film. He is like the opposite of the murder mystery victim.
What I find absolutely hilarious and fascinating about it, which got me kind of giggling from the first instant, is the fact that he is so dumb. And it's kind of, we're so kind of tied into characters like Elon Musk, where yes, they've gone and done stuff like, PayPal, and then gone on to
take credit for all the actual other people's inventions.
Yeah, to do Tesla, and then to go on and do SpaceX, and then to go on, and now he's moved on to Twitter and doing all of that stuff. It's fascinating to go from like kind of that character who over time people were calling him genius, and now people are calling him an absolute idiot who doesn't know what they're talking about and just takes credit elsewhere. It's so funny that's come up at the same time as this film, because this film absolutely nails that. From the opening moments of child equals NFT, I was just sat there just pissing myself laughing in the seat, and everyone was really into it. The fact that tech is a theme I really like, because it means that a lot of kind of mumbo jumbo jargon can be thrown at you, and especially seen as the actual twist of the film is he's an idiot. All of that mumbo jumbo like kind of stuff, it makes no sense anyway. Like it means nothing. which is just brilliant because it means you can go absolutely nuts with the writing of it. But the fact that everyone at the start of the film is like on board with him at being this philanthropist and being on board with this charismatic character who's like was a friend with everyone, it's just such a great kind of thing. And the setting itself, the glass onion and the island, it's nice because it means the characters are isolated. The one thing about the first film was they were only isolated because the police said you had to stay there, but there were a lot of moments that took place outside of it, and the characters could have just disappeared off at any point if they wanted to, because it was a solved case from the start, and then they had to kind of unsolve it to try and find the real killer. With this case, you are literally trapped, and it's fascinating how it has changed. Instead of it being a murder from the absolute very start, or kind of a suicide and trying to figure our way backwards and find the killer from there, we have an awful lot of build-up. And by awful lot of build-up, we literally mean 2/3 of the film is build-up until kind of the climax moment. And to have that kind of slow build of pace and that slow kind of realization of what's going on, set everything up ready to go, and then suddenly kind of pull the rug, that's exactly what you want from a whodunit film. No other whodunit film this year has done it in the same way. I've seen See How They Run. I've also seen Enola Holmes 2, which is also another kind of whodunit film. There we go. But I haven't seen Bodies, Bodies. But I can guarantee you, like Rian Johnson, a lot of people still criticize him for Star Wars and stuff like that. He gets an awful lot of hate online for it. But he does know how to pull off a twist. He knows how to work characters. He knows how to work layers into his stories. We saw that from Looper. We've seen that even from kind of Star Wars and from the first kind of Knives Out film. This film, he does exactly the same, and he's able to weave it perfectly, like putty in his hand, just kind of like molding the story exactly how he wants it to go. Have the characters kind of so flamboyant and so kind of charismatic that it kind of blinds you with what the characters actually are, which is the whole point of the film. Characters masquerading, being one thing and actually being something else. It's what pretty much every single character does in this film.
Yeah, and kind of going off what you said there with his writing, I love the fact that this is almost his franchise, that this is exclusively his series. And you mentioned his other films, and I don't even think it's about twists, because it's one thing to do a twist, to write a twist. Anyone can do that. It's another thing to kind of do it successfully, but not doing it successfully in the sense you surprise them. It's to do it in the mindset of, wow, this logistically works for the story and the characters in the play. Now, obviously, if you're going to go Last Jedi, I would divert from the full conversation, but killing Snoke, which no one in a million years saw coming, who'd been billed as the Emperor for the new trilogy, to off him 2/3 of the way through the second film, but in turn promote Kylo Ren to be the new big bad of the series, worked logistically. It was obviously them. Epsilon, it didn't work. And even Rey, oh, look, she isn't a Skywalker. It wasn't a statement of, oh, look, I don't want us to be a Skywalker. It's, we can have the message that this is just somebody. It doesn't need to be a big name to be a protagonist. And there's so much in there that, you know, we will get his Star Wars trilogy, but I got to meet him in the Glass Onion premiere. I actually shouted at him as well. Like, I'm still waiting for the Star Wars trilogy, and he's very good with the fans as well when he's discussing stuff like that. But this film in particular, just when I was watching it last night, the writing, and as you kind of said, you don't get the Tom Butler from Bondi said we're chatting about this morning, and he said, you know, it's a whodunit without it, you know, and when find out about it, it's like 2/3 in, and it's so well done. And even when it builds up to the most blatant, this is the moment Ed Norton's going to die, we've clearly got here, and he still doesn't, and it's not subverting expectations.
It is that tension building scene with expecting a gunshot to go off whilst the Mona Lisa painting thing slamming down.
Yeah,
you're just expecting it to go. Yes,
throughout the entire film, they're slamming that painting, and not once does that have any repercussions for a scene. It is just tension. It's filmmaking. We've got Martin in the chat. Lovely to see you, Martin, as always. I hope you've seen the film because we are spoiling it. But kind of, and in lieu of that, you know, bringing the Ed Norton stuff in. I mean, I don't want to get into Elon Musk's Twitter stuff too much, but what a difference a month makes, because you've watched this film before all this nonsense.
Yes.
And thought, and you've probably sort of thought about it as well, a lot of things happening. I watched this yesterday. I was like, you'd think this was written in the last week or two. It's that bad. And it's not a parody of Elon Musk, but the way it's written is so incredibly
If it's so
targeted
funny,
and
if he goes and watches this film, basically, he will think it's possibly about him, and he
he'll
will
start
get
tweeting
angry.
abuse at Ryan Johnson too.
Yes.
Yeah, and the my perspective from this is, if you look at the films Ryan Johnson's done, it's very much his like disgust with wealth. Last Jedi, Canto Bight. What's the logic? The rich
Yeah.
people are scum here, in theory, Canto Bight. And you've also got, hey, but it doesn't matter because they're selling ships, the good guys, the bad guys, it doesn't matter. It's all about profit, it's about
I
money.
was going to say the
Knives
first
Out
Knives
1,
Out film. Yeah.
it's a rich family full of bastards. Knives Out 2, it's the power that a tech billionaire can have and the people that leech off him being shitheads as it comes out throughout. And that's what I found so amazing. And kind of what I think is beautiful alongside this is that he's bagged himself $100 million in salary from the next two Knives Out films. And I can't wait to see who he's going to go for it in the third one. Imagine what's about the film industry. But it's one of these kind of things where Ed Norton as well, I think no one in the world is going to say Ed Norton is an underrated actor. But he does pick his projects very wisely, and I think he picks them well enough that you don't see him in things. He'll crop up every couple of years in something bigger, but he's very much about the role. And certainly since Birdman for me, when he took that very self-aware role of I'm playing the actor who's up himself, who's artsy, who's difficult, that's my real life rep. I absolutely love him for that. And he's so well fit for playing this tech billionaire that's so far up his own arse, it's like unimaginable to be against it. And it comes down to getting the casting right. And what sort of surprised me most is that Ryan Johnson's not writing these roles around actors. You know, you think he'd bring the actors in, then right. And maybe, you know, he does a final draft when they are cast, who knows, but it's almost done with precision. And it's an insane compliment for me, but it's that Tarantino effect where like anytime someone's cast in a Tarantino film, you know, okay, they are there for a purpose other than being in the film. That's someone that Tarantino wants. And I think Ryan Johnson's got the potential to reach those heights when the time comes. Of I want this actor, I'll get this actor, and I'll write around them. But in the meantime, I absolutely love how they've done this, and just going off, you know, the murder stuff of this. We really have to talk. I know it's jumping ahead, but we're going to try and make this make sense. Janelle Monáe, who I haven't seen anything when I was a singer. I know she's been in a few things. Kind of the lead role, playing twin sisters, Andy and Helen Brand. Completely blew me away. I was, because again, I made sure I read nothing about this before watching it, and I know they wouldn't have advertised it being a twin, but going back to the script and the kind of genius of this is that Benoit Blanc, you know, it's posed as a question to us for the first hour of the film. Why is Benoit Blanc here? Who has invited him? And the answer was, this was all sorted a couple of days before the film begins. You know, actually, he knows why he's here. He's working on a mission with Helen to oust the murderer that we know is there that we didn't know had committed a murder at that point.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's something about this where it's, to me, I don't want to say it transcends a genre because that's really up itself, but
yeah,
it does not treat the audience as stupid. You don't need to be smart to watch or understand it, but it's just a storytelling perspective that's not really been done in this kind of genre, which I think why it feels so fresh.
Flashbacks have been used before, but not to the same effect. Not to
like a whole narrative. Like it went on for
a whole
about
narrative that's hidden.
I thought, oh, we're going to get a flashback and then we're going to go forward. I was like, oh no, like we're getting like we got about 35 minutes worth, I want to say.
Sometimes, usually flashbacks are kind of to flesh out characters, not to flesh out the plot, not to actually set you in. Basically, is one of those, hold on, we need to go back here to see how we got into this situation kind of moments. But I've seen Janelle Monáe before in Hidden Figures and in Moonlight, and she's fantastic in both. But this film, she absolutely stole the show. She was fantastic. Playing kind of one character in the first half, so kind of mysterious, kind of silent, judgy, kind of, you know, brooding, almost kind of bitter. That's how she came off as. And then to find out that she's acting, it's an act. I know that obviously Janelle Monáe is acting in the character, but her character itself is meant to be acting like her sister would be in that role. And when you kind of think back on everything that's done from the previous scenes, the reason why she's silent is because she doesn't want to give it away. and it's so well done in that sense, and so much more makes sense from that. But the fact that it's kind of the murder in the film, or at least the main murder of the film, was completely hidden, like completely hidden. The fact that Andy was dead from the very start and we weren't watching Andy is such a massive, like, who comes up with that? Like, how on earth were they able to weave that together and to have that kind of dynamic between both kind of Daniel Craig and Janelle Monáe on screen? They worked so well together when they were kind of acting as kind of they didn't know each other, and also acting when they were together. It was a really good team, and she fills in the role that Anna de Armas had in the first film of being kind of the protagonist for, you know, Benoit Blanc to kind of work his way around and try and kind of help solve the mystery on their behalf almost. I mean, she was the one who actually hired him in this film, which is funny because the one who hired him in the first film was actually the murderer. So, you know, it's fascinating.
It works so well, and I think they divert it from the first one where there's no references, there's no Anna Diarmas pops up on a Zoom call, because we know he has the Zoom call with the cameos, and without getting into cameos, you know, we know there's a few very famous names in this.
Yeah.
I love the fact that it's not a big thing that there were cameos, like it doesn't revolve around who turned up at what. It's just these lovely little nods of the head, and
it's nice that he plays, you know, Among Us, which I thought was quite funny.
And everyone did that in Knockdown. I played loads of Among Us in Knockdown, and the fact it's Benoit Blanc playing Among Us, who hates it because he does that stuff for real. I mean, let's talk Benoit Blanc, because
no, very quickly back onto that point. I want to draw this back in. Avengers Endgame throwing in Fortnite. That's not how you do it, because that date stamps.
That was product placement.
That was product placement to that time. Whereas this is set post lockdown. And it's the one thing that everyone did in lockdown. So it immediately ties itself in. That's how you bring in a reference from the outside.
Yeah. And also having Angela, I mean, quite sad, but I know this has come out before, but obviously Angela Lansbury and Stephen Sondheim both passed away in the last year. And of course, they'd filmed the Zoom call in this.
Yeah.
And I think then Natasha, who was in this, has done Russian Doll, who's working with Rian Johnson on a new series, I think, that comes out next year.
Was it Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as well?
Yeah. And of course, Hugh Grant. We'll get into that's a big one, but let's talk some Benoit Blanc, because you know, we've done a lot of Bond stuff the anniversary this year, and I'm a very big fan of Daniel Craig. I think he's a wonderful actor, and I called The Shackles of Bond earlier, but we know he's someone that's very publicly, he respects playing Bond, he's enjoyed playing Bond, but as has happened in the past, with certainly with Connery, you know, there comes a point when it's best for the actors to leave, and obviously Lockdown extended his, I guess we could say, his role as Bond by an extra year and a half. But we've got to go back to Knives Out. One is that when they played No Time to Die for the very first time, it opened up his schedule to play Benoit Blanc, which I think almost has perfectly led him in for a post-Bond career, in the sense, we know we've done a few wacky roles whilst playing Bond. You know, the really obvious one is the one
Logan
Driver and Logan Lucky. That's it. But he hadn't. I don't want to say he hadn't had a hit. That's unfair. But he hadn't had this one role that everyone can speak of that wasn't Bond. And I know it's a bit unfair to compare it to Connery, but you know, Connery's career, a magnificent career. Then you take Bond out, but you say Indiana Jones or The Untouchables, and I think Craig's going to have this career. But the fact he had Knives Out 1 before No Time to Die came out, and this is his first role after No Time to Die, I think has perfectly set him up for what he wants to do. He's had this vodka advert that Taika Waititi directed that's gone viral of him doing the dancing. But I love in this film, they dial up the tone of Benoit Blanc. And I know that originally Rian Johnson had joked about the concept of he wanted him to have a different accent per film. Obviously, they stuck with the Deep South, but they like dialed that up from 10 to 12 for this. And I love what they did with him, that he wasn't just saying catchphrases from the last one. There wasn't, you know, he could have done the donut hole speech, but he didn't. And I think it's really important what they did with this character in this one, that he's once again ahead of the game. And probably one of the best moments from the entire film is when he's already worked out the murder mystery weekend that's going to take 3 days for everyone to do, that he'd done it by the time he'd sat there in the room. And and I just think Daniel Craig as Benoit Blanc is just incredible. And I guess one of the big things with this is, of course, the revelation that he is indeed gay in the series, and his partner. Now, I thought I didn't have this spoiled, but the article had come out that he was gay, and you would find out who his partner is, and obviously then the rumor mill starts swearing. I know all my friends had seen it, so I couldn't say anything. I couldn't ask. I didn't want to know who it was. I know Joseph Gordon-Levitt always cameos in Rian Johnson films, and I was like, surely it wouldn't be Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It's too easy. It's too obvious.
Well, funnily enough, do you know what he was in this film?
The Dong, the owly
He was
Dong.
the Dong. He was the owly
which is
Dong.
Incredible. Just the fact that he's been the police sergeant in the first one, the phone in his car chase, the Dong in this, the weird thing on Canto Bight about them parking in the wrong spot in Nashadai. I love that he will pop up as a human being at one point in Knives Out, but Hugh Grant, what perfect casting! Like that wasn't who I thought. And at the same time, it felt so right. Now, obviously, when you saw this, you wouldn't have even known that was a conversation piece, whereas I did. So, I don't know how you'd have reacted to just Hugh Grant just popping up. Like,
everyone was laughing. There was some clapping going on and stuff like that. I think we missed his first line of dialogue because of it, because the crowd reaction was just maddening. Especially for those who don't know, the London Film Festival, when they have the press screenings, the crowd really gets into it in some films, especially the gala films. They like to react to those moments in comedies. I mean, we had the biggest reaction I think I've ever seen from any film ever was, and even more than watching like the Star Wars premieres and stuff like that, was the "Fuck Off Hitler" from Jojo Rabbit, where everyone was just laughing themselves off. Like that's the kind of atmosphere that, you know, you get from those kind of films. Everyone was just laughing. But with this as well, this was a big reaction. Everyone was clapping, everyone was like laughing and stuff like that. It was great. It was great.
No, and that's good to hear. I think yesterday there was a lot of laughter when Hugh Grant popped up, and Hugh Jackman would have been another one that would have struck everyone though. That being said,
well, I was going to say Ethan Hawke was cast, and it's so funny.
I'd known about this.
We're not even going to mention him. He was in the film for one scene and never seen again. I don't know what he was doing in this film.
And he was all over. Like, I remember when
marketing.
When this started shooting in Greece last year, the first pictures that went around were of them getting on the boat. So everyone knew who they were. You see them in their costumes. Everyone was like, ooh. And then it was like, day two was like, is that Ethan Hawke on this set of Knives Out 2? And it was everybody like, Ethan Hawke in Knives Out 2. And then they announced him, and then they took him away from the formal announcement. And obviously he pops up, and then he doesn't come back. I was like, oh.
I don't know. Ethan Hawke. Has something happened there? Because I feel like he could have been part of the plot on the island or something like that. Like,
I think he's probably mates with Rian Johnson and thought, hey, you know, I can do this I can come in for a day if you want me to. Yeah, it was so random. But I'll take it.
It did look and feel like a day trip character, like literally one day on set done kind of job.
And you get a few of these cameos throughout. And listen, you know, we're doing a spoiler discussion. It's not a Marvel thing. I think people are going to be screaming that Serena Williams popped up. Though I would say that's the one that took me out of it.
Yes.
I don't know why. I think it's because it's an advert and it's that, oh, I'm on the clock. Like, that joke's been done before.
Yeah. She was the one cameo where I was like, oh, okay. Fine.
And the constant taking the piss out of Jared Leto I found funny, and Jeremy Renner's hot sauce as well.
Yeah.
Things like that. It's just, again, there's a way to write this. And listen, some jokes are going to work for some, not all. Some might work for all, and vice versa and whatnot. So it is really interesting with this. But Benoit Blanc himself with Daniel Craig, again, when you're the lead in a murder mystery, it's hard for you to have development. Because you're not the focus. Although you are the protagonist, you're the protagonist via means of solving the crime, not because it's about you or your life. And I think for them to bring in a relationship, and we get to see that sort of, as you mentioned with Anna Dimas in the first film with Janelle Monáe and this, he has this sort of calming presence around that supporting lead. And it's almost like he's like the sort of the wingman to carry them, to push them to the forefront of the film in each one, which he absolutely does do. And I thought Daniel Craig was great in this, and I just love the fact that he's clearly having a great time filming it, and it just makes me excited for, you know, I know he'd just done a stint on Broadway, he'd done a Macbeth adaptation, he's clearly going to have things in the pipeline moving forward, and I'm excited to see whatever it is. If it's Glass Onion, I keep calling it Glass Onion 2. It's Knives Out 3, isn't it? It's such a strange thing. But yeah. Do we want to talk about some of the big moments we've not spoke about yet?
Yeah. So I think the first moment we can talk about is the other death, possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is, in fact, well, there's technically 3 deaths in this film, but we've kind of talked about the flashback already. Before the flashback, there is a shooting, and Jean Monet's character survives the shooting. That's where we go into the flashback. But the first death, we all expect it to be Edward Norton's Miles Bron. We expect it to be that character to die. We have that tension build up that we talked about with the Mona Lisa snapping down and stuff like that. And then suddenly it's Batista's character.
Yeah.
And it's really fascinating to the fact that afterwards, once the mystery is solved, it's very obvious what's happened. And it's great when a writer can do that, when they can put the mystery right in front of our noses and then say, well, you missed it, basically, but I showed you the murder. Like, but no, it was fascinating that they didn't kill off Edward Norton's character, who everyone thought would be the one to die, because it'd been advertised before. He said, oh, you have to solve my murder mystery and stuff like that. And it looked like it was going to be going in that direction of actually having to solve that murder mystery. But in the end, no, it's the person he's standing next to. And then it plays into that whole kind of Ed Norton thinking that people are out there to kill him, because there's that grief over the design for the company and stuff like that, the kind of initial idea and everything like that. So it's absolutely fascinating from that point forwards, like with his character, who's fantastic in this film, by the way. I think it's probably I know that he has a lot of fun on Guardians of the Galaxy, but this one, I'm sure he probably had as much, if not more, fun doing this character, because it was so, comedic in its sense.
He's for, and I know you're not into wrestling as much. So I don't watch it now, but the person I watched with yesterday with my friend, we used to go to wrestling loads. So for us two, as wrestling fans, you have this sense of pride when you see certain wrestlers make the jump into, if you're a film fan, you'll see the pride in jumping from wrestling to film. And I think you get, not to just shit talk on The Rock, but you get the wrestlers that will get big, that we know have we know that Cena is a household name. You know that his film career will get bigger. Films like Fast and Furious make sense for him to be in. The Rock makes sense for him to be in them. But there's something about the day that Batista popped up in Blade Runner in the oversized costume with the small glasses, not being this big, intimidating, threatening man, being a replicant. And I thought, oh, Batista's like getting to act. Yeah, it's a small role. And over the years with Guardians is wonderful for his career. I know he's a massive fan of James Gunn. He couldn't care less about Marvel. He's there for James Gunn and for the Guardians team. I've not seen the Christmas special yet, which I'm hearing good stuff about him as well. And here we are again, where he's working with the director and he's getting the chance to actually act. And it's quite interesting for me, at least, because I can compare him to other wrestlers, and immediately he's already had the best career, if I'm being honest, of the wrestlers to get into film. And I think Batista is going to get better and better. We're going to get him in June Part 2, to name a few. But him in this, there's something so relaxed that, he's this, big guy, but his point of frame isn't he's a big guy. He's a YouTuber. And probably the same for you. Some of the funniest scenes is it begins with his apology. Yeah. And everyone knows the running joke of the YouTube apologies, this has happened, I'm a better person now, this is this. And Rian Johnson knows how to write these kinds of characters because they are all quite scummy, not just YouTubers. The whole, fake apology.
It's also, since the time of filming and since the time it's come out, or at least since the time of writing, the real life personality of Andrew Tate has kind of come to the fore. And, thankfully he's been taken off all the platforms. But once again, this character was probably not written with him in mind, but it's come off reflecting in that same way. He's a big, buff, bold kind of alt-right YouTuber.
Influencer. The worst
influencer who hates women and, wants to preach, freedom and stuff. It's ridiculous, but that's
and he's trying to get, and he's trying to get his career being an actual TV news host. He wants to show as part of the tech firm, which, it has his goals. And I think with Batista, for him to die, and that's not the one I saw coming, and I don't think anyone would. But what I do remember vividly is when he did die, straight away we knew, okay, because the way they framed the shot with the glass was very odd. So we know, okay, something's going to happen here now. And that is Ed Norton's glass. But when you get the revelation that it was Ed Norton that killed him because he had the info that he knew he'd already killed Andy.
But not only that, but Daniel Craig also said, literally, put poison in your glass, turn off the lights, and shoot someone in the dark. It's like literally everything that Daniel Craig told him could happen to him, he just used as his thing. And it goes back to that original point from the very start of the film, and it's going to be fascinating on second watch with the knowledge that Edward Norton is dumb. The film is going to be so different to watch. It's going to be so fascinating.
Even the, we can't get the police here tonight. Why? Because the way he designed the island is low tide, so we can only come in the morning.
Yeah.
And it's little things like that made such a big difference. And it's going to be interesting, certainly seeing the flashbacks and when we get to see them when they're younger, Batista with the toupee, I just couldn't recover from. And there's so many great things, but even the way Batista acted in that death, and the fact it is a death is sort of lame as, allergy poisoning, which is a very real thing. But it isn't this big mysterious. It's, again, this was a stupid way to kill him. And you've done it exactly the way we thought you would. And it's a great moment that really does kickstart, the following scenes, the darkness, the getting shot, and how I kind of feel. I know I'm jumping ahead if it's too far, but we've spoken about Janelle Monáe's character stuff with Andy.
Yeah.
And I love how they weave in the background. I love that Ed Norton has, not gossip, but Ed Norton feeds everyone there, that they are all shitheads, everyone on the island, as they're called. They all need him for their own personal gains, and they'll happily sell out the right person if it means they can stay attached to him.
It's not only that, but they all need him, but realistically, they realize towards the end of the film that actually they really would do better without him. The only thing they need him for is his money. So,
and once the chance comes for them to wipe him out with the Mona Lisa stuff, they know that there's no recovery for Ed Norton now. We've got our excuses to get past this because he's literally blown up the Mona Lisa with his terrible new formula compound, which I wasn't too fussed about that helium type stuff. Again, it's a very, very minor part of the film, so it's not necessarily important to know.
Also, I know the scene of like the smashing all the glass and stuff like that. That's a big kind of like empowering moment for her character. I thought it was a bit over the top, if that made sense. And that's in a film that's quite over the top with a lot of the actions that happen in it. I just didn't see that in her character and stuff like that. And I mean, it made sense in the end with kind of blowing up the building and having that kind of tarnishing his name and tying his name down to something that, he wanted to be mentioned with. And kind of, it's a good way to get revenge on someone. And it means that in the end, he will be kind of brought to justice because of it. But at the same time, I feel like it could have had a cleaner ending. The first film definitely had a much cleaner ending.
Yes.
Whereas this film,
that final shot won't be better from the first one. That's impossible to top.
No, this film felt, a bit messier towards the end, and it's the only criticism I have of the film is that it's quite a messy kind of final 15-20 minutes, and the third act is quite long. I mean, you could say that the second act is the flashback, but that means an awfully long first act.
Yeah.
But it's a really interestingly layered film. I wouldn't even say there's 3 acts. You could possibly say there's 4 acts in this film. But it's fascinating to the fact that the ending was the one thing that I would say as a criticism could have been tidied up, and maybe they didn't know how to end it. Maybe they knew, well, we can't really end it with anyone else dying. We can't really end it with, we got to end it some way. And part of me does kind of want, the ending to be a little bit unsatisfying and genuinely have him get away with it, because people like that do get away with stuff. Especially, those characters like Elon Musk and stuff like that, who do seem to kind of always land on their feet no matter what happens. So
no, it's a good point. Like, so I'm kind of in the smashing scene that I got the concept that eventually this is going to piss him off that you're just being petty, and I do know the fact that she's at her best when she's drinking the alcohol that gets the courage to be working it well, but it's the whole build up into money does affect him. He relies on status, he relies on having things and having power over people, and the bit that lost me, or not lost me, but they all jump in like a minute into the smash up, like this is actually pretty great too, and I don't need redemptions, but the other characters didn't have that for me because they're all scumbags, you know,
Mm.
you know, and so it's. I mean, Catherine Howard spoke about, but she's amazing at anything she's ever been in, but her playing the politician. I mean, if anyone's watched Parks and Rec, I thought it was almost the same character to begin with, which I was so excited about. But you know, you got these great moments like, I can't be singing here, I can't be singing Murder Island. I'm the politician that's just flown into another country during COVID. Like, yeah, we know about all that. That happened a lot here. And
Yeah.
you know, the musician, well, the model having the parties, and it holds a lot of the tradition. It's very funny. I think Rian Johnson knows when he's poking fun at the right people and social media, and how, you know, not modern filmmakers, but how the modern social media world,
or even, you know, the scientist who says it's dangerous but then still goes along with it anyway, kind of like, because he doesn't want to, you know, he's covering his own back in that same sense. He'd rather put himself above the public. It's for a person who works towards science.
And even the Elon Musk thing, it's like, it's the scientist that does all the hard work that gets none of the credit for that hard work. And I just love that the whole film is just telling you how much of a sort of a twat, not Elon Musk is, Ed Norton is. And I think that in turn works in his favor, that, you know, when we get to the ending, although he's lived, I thought he might die at some point, that they took everything from him, his life's a ruin, but there's something poetic about how it's left. The one thing I didn't really get was the character Daryl. No, played by Noah Segan, the one that lives on the island.
Film.
He was in the first one, and to me, if I'm being, there were people in my screening that laughed like I know that he was in Looper, I know he was in Brick, he's been in a lot of Rian Johnson stuff. I think he was even in Last Jedi. I get all of that, putting that character, and for me, that's just that. Maybe it's the American humor, but that's the one thing that didn't work to me too much. Although I did laugh at the bit at the end with him and Benoit Blanc, but not any of his other bits.
Yeah, it made no sense to have a repeated character or a repeated actor from the film playing a different character. Like, it doesn't work in universe. It doesn't work. Like, this film isn't meta enough to, you know, have that kind of influence and structure for it. So I also found it quite jarring in that sense. And yeah, I just felt it fell out of place.
No, 100%. I'm with you on that. And I found like, no, I don't really know how to go further with this.
I mean, we've chatted about pretty much all the spoilers we've talked about.
Yeah, and the thing is, now we've spoke about it for almost an hour, there's not many spoilers in themselves. The beauty of this film is the narrative flashback that is about 40 minutes long. That's where, for me, this film starts to separate itself from other stories out there. That, again, the murder was weeks before. What happened in that scene, in that moment, is truthfully what this is about. And I just think when I get the second viewing, when I get the repeat viewing, there'll be a lot more to take in, because I did very much enjoy this. Is near the top of my 2022 list. It is just one where I think a second viewing won't help in the sense I understood everything absolutely fine. I thought a lot of it was funny, but the big moments, there's not much of it. But the moments we get are pretty great. You know, when you go into these kind of films, and oh yeah, there's the guy that's going to get died. Oh no, he didn't die. Oh okay, the other one died. Now they're going to kill. Oh, they still don't kill Norton. Oh, he's actually the murderer and he's a moron. That's just not really done. And what I was kind of worried about was, and I fear this of every murder mystery, because obviously I know it was a pro one, is that everyone was involved together.
Yeah.
I hope Knives Out never does that. It'd be too easy. And you know, everyone has their motives, but I guess maybe a side criticism is that I don't think anyone's motives were ever strong enough to kill Ed Norton, because we all know they relied on him too much to feed them.
And
that's the purpose of it. It's about them leaving him for his own downfall, which, you know, would have happened. And if I'm heading into my final thoughts, very off topic, I absolutely adore this film. I can't wait to see it again. I'm a big fan of Rian Johnson. If it's not clear by now, I'm a big fan of Daniel Craig. A lot of this cast. And I'm very excited to see what happens with Knives Out 3 and any potential drama in between with cinema release dates, box offices, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I also really enjoyed this film. I think it settled with me really nicely. I wasn't sure, because I wasn't the biggest fan of the ending, how I'd kind of come off from it. But kind of on reflection, the film is absolutely fantastic from kind of, you know, start to finish. There is moments where, you know, I prefer the first film, and overall I do prefer the first film over this one. But this is a fantastic sequel to this film. And I think the first thing I said when coming out the cinema was, yeah, this is a franchise now. We know this is a franchise now. This is absolutely sealed on, and they'll be able to make as many films they want with this if they really wanted to. And they could keep using, Daniel Craig could keep going with the character for as long as he wants to. And it seems like he's more settled with this character than he was with Bond. I know that with Bond,
It's a lot easier.
It's an awful lot easier.
A 5-6 week shoot, probably, if that.
There's a lot less pressure on him as well because Bond is such an iconic character. There's always going to be that weight that comes with it. Yeah, physical role. This is more of like a kind of comedic role, so he can have fun with it on set. And it'd be interesting that if, seeing as we saw him in Logan Lucky, I know beforehand, before he went into this, he was in films like Munich, Layer Cake, which aren't comedies, they're more action driven. It'd be hilarious if he came off the end of Bond and was like, no, I'm a comedian actor now. You know, I'm just going to do comedy films. I'm just going to do light-hearted films. Because this suits him as an actor. He's fantastic in it. And yeah, no, I really enjoyed this film, really enjoyed all the twists and turns that it gave me. And I'm looking forward to, you know, analyzing it, watching it over again towards Christmas time.
Definitely. And that's going to do it for our Glass Onion review. So as we said earlier, please do comment your thoughts on Glass Onion. If you've seen this, you're watching it later down the line, let us know your thoughts. We'll reply to those comments. Or maybe watching in December, you wait until it hits Netflix. I'll be very curious to know everyone's thoughts on that too, because it's going to be a very interesting one. And, you know, I know it's been probably about 6 weeks since the review. It was like mid-October, wasn't it? You know, in another 6 weeks, we'll be having Oscar nominations, and who knows what they'll be able to do with this one. I know they're going to push it.
Screenplay,
I think
probably not actors, but maybe
the first one was nominated for original screenplay. This one adapted screenplay.
Yeah,
don't know about a best picture, but I'm curious to see who they campaign for what, and it'll be interesting to follow how Netflix does its awards season this year, because they've got a lot of things scheduled. And if anyone's curious about Netflix's awards run, they've all scheduled it on Netflix. The 9th of December is Pinocchio. The 16th is Bardo. The 23rd is Knives Out. The 30th is White Noise. That's the big ones they're pushing across that month. So there'll be a lot of those coming out across December. But Tate, when we've got other videos, because I was going to say, what is next? We finished the Spielberg series. Yes. So I can't plug the normal Tuesday. We finished Andor, so I can't plug the normal Wednesday. I don't actually know what's next. I know there is a video for a home media thing, an unboxing I've been asked to do. But I want to actually wait till Amazon delivers what I purchased before I do it when it's released next week. So there might be a home media thing. But I guess we can say we don't fully know. But where would we tell them when we do know?
Best place to find out about our new videos is always our social medias. So go on to Twitter and Instagram at cinema_savvy. Thankfully, well, Twitter, you know, we don't know what's happening with Twitter at the moment, but it's alive for now. So we're still posting there, and that's the best places, you know, to find out any of our content that's coming out. Go on to Facebook and Letterboxd as well. That is Cinema Savvy. You'll be able to find any of, you know, our details also on there down in the description. And finally, go on to our Redbubble store where you can pick up some merch and help out the channel.
Definitely. So everybody, please do that. This has been a delight talking Knives Out, as it always is. And as I said, when the next video is up, we'll see you then. But in the meantime, thank you for watching. Thank you for taking time out of your day to watch this. We hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.